welcome everyone. Great morning, great morning, great morning. It's a beautiful morning inside and outside. Great morning to all, and thank you for being here with us. Thank you to our media team, our readers, and all of our attendees this morning. Well, first I want to ask you, remember the letters to God that we wrote back in January? Those who may not have been on that in that service, the New Year's service. Each year, it's a tradition in Unity that we write a letter to God. And basically what it is we're writing our thank yous, our gratitude. It's a letter of gratitude for all that we experienced in the year before, and also all that we expect to experience in the year coming in the new year. And so most of us have put that letter, taken it and put it into our Bible, or you may have put it in your prayer box, wherever you kept it, in whatever sacred space you kept it. And we also wrote another letter for the burning bowl, which we either flushed or we shredded or we burned. And that was all of the attributes that we wanted to release. So my question to you this morning is, where do you stand with that? We're now in the month of June. We're halfway into the year. Where do you stand with that? Do you remember what you wrote to release? Do you remember what is contained in your letter to God? Well, I would encourage you to spend some time, invest some time, just thinking about what it is you were working on releasing, and also reviewing the letter that you wrote to God, because maybe you want to make some changes in it at this point to take you through the balance of the year, but not to forget that exercise that we did back in January and what it is you said you were working on for this new year and what it is you have released. Amen. Well, today our lesson is entitled Peace, P-E-A-C-E, not pieces, P-I-E-C-E-S, peace, not pieces. Well, I know that we spoke a few weeks ago on the subject of peace, but given the events and the psychosocial atmosphere at this time, I'm led to revisit that subject and maybe from a different perspective. Peace, not pieces. Well, as you may know, and I'm sure most of us do know, that back in April, there was a volcanic eruption on the island of St. Vincent. Do you remember that? The eruption was so strong that the volcanic ash was falling like snow on the neighboring islands. And in speaking with a family member of mine who lives in Barbados, I'm told that the volcanic ash coated the streets, the homes, the cars, and all of the surfaces, closing the airport and placing the island on pause, in addition to the pandemic pause that they were already experiencing. People literally were homebound for a time with windows closed and not able to go outside. The air outside was full of ash particles, and the scent of the sulfur was everywhere. Barbados, being only about 100 miles away from St. Vincent, experienced this at that time. So now in Unity, we believe that there is good existing in everything. So in examining situations, we look for and we highlight the good, the God in it. We don't make believe that there are not other things happening in the situation, but we choose where we're going to focus our energy, where we're going to focus our time, and we choose to look in that situation and see the good. Well, in this particular situation with the volcanic ash, creativity prevailed. You see, the ash has economic and sustainability benefits, and obviously the people of Barbados knew that. So what did the people do? I am told that if you walk along or ride along the roads in Barbados, you will see sacks, bags of ashes piled up along the way, in people's yards and along the roads. Why is that, we might ask? Well, you see, the people knew the economic and sustainability benefits of this ash. And so some people bagged up in sacks the ash to make stone in order to make cement walkways. How creative. And then some people, I'm told, bagged up the ash in sacks to make makeup. Can you imagine? Because the rich minerals that are contained, the antiseptic, antibacterial, and antioxidant properties in the ash are good for clearing the blemishes and clearing the skin and healing inflamed skin. Did you know that? How creative. And then there were some people, particularly this family member that I was speaking to, bagged up the ash and used it to fertilize her crops because the ash, you see, is rich in potassium. And she was explaining to me, and I could see the joy on her face as she explained to me how her crops were just growing and growing so beautifully. So as I was listening to this, and after I listened to the story, I was thinking to myself and meditating on the point, what is the lesson in that experience? What is it that we can draw out of that experience? Well, two points came to me. One is that that lesson is a true truth, an example and demonstration that there's only one presence, there's only one substance. There is only one substance, God the good, and it is ours to recognize, to utilize, and to share. And it's ours to determine how we're going to utilize it. One substance, and everything is made from that one substance. The second idea that came to me was that we live our lives according to the stories that we tell ourselves. We live our lives according to the stories that we tell ourselves. You see, people could have panicked and fell to pieces over this ash, and some may have. Initially, they took refuge indoors, and those that were attuned to the wisdom and the peace within saw the good and acted on it. They took what was deemed a negative situation and made positive use of it. They chose to embrace being prospered by the ash. Can you imagine? They chose to embrace that they were being prospered by this ash rather than being doomed by the ash. So life is as we perceive it to be in our mind and as we feel it to be in our heart. The life we live right now, the life we live right now at this moment is in direct correlation to the stories that we tell ourselves and the recordings that we mentally replay and rehearse in our mind. We have the option of, as human beings, of embracing stories that align with the mind of God, creating truth, creating peace. And we also have the option of embracing stories aligned with the ego mind that cause us to fall to panicked pieces. We have the choice. And whatever story we rehearse in the mind with consistency bears fruit. Let's look at an example. Many of us, as Unity students and Unity folks, know the affirmative words of the late spiritual leader, Hannah Kohas. She was an educator, she was a writer, and she was also a social activist. And she wrote these words in the late 1800s. Most of us know these words, and the words are, God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. Listen to these words of affirmation. They bear the fruit of supply, protection, and peacefulness. Listen to the first two lines. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. That is an affirmation of supply. That's an affirmation of knowing that our physical, mental, emotional, financial, social, and relational needs are met. An affirmation of supply. Imagine if we were to over and over and over and over again play that tape in our head, play that CD in our mind. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. We would not feel any lack of anything if that was what we were rehearsing in our minds over and over and over again. And we have that choice. Listen to the second two lines. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. That's an affirmation of protection and peace. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of this day. So then if we were to replay that and rehearse that and rehearse that and rehearse that in our mind, we would not fear or fret because we would know and feel that protection. We would feel the presence of God within us and around us. So we wouldn't have to fear or fret. But we can choose, my friends, which way we're going to go, how we're going to move forward in our life, according to what we rehearse over and over and over again in our mind. And by the way, that poem is called the Prayer of Protection, uh, that poem is called the Prayer of Faith. And the next to the Prayer of Protection, it is the prayer that is prayed most prominently in the Unity movement. And it was a favorite of Myrtle Fillmore. Now, it was written back in the late 1800s, but it is still to today a staple in the Unity movement, the prayer for protection and the prayer of faith. So now, what do you think causes the feeling that sometimes we have of not being balanced, that feeling of a lack of peace? You know, sometimes we hear the song in our service, Peace is All I Know. Remember that song? Peace is all I know. And that peace is at our center, that peace is at our core. But sometimes in our humanness, we're not there, we're not centered there. But I want you to know that a lack of peace is a feeling and not a truth. A lack of peace is a feeling that we have as human beings sometimes, but it is not the truth of our being. The truth of our being is that we are peace. We are peace filled. Peace is really all we know. Sometimes we get off track with that. So at those times when we're not really feeling at peace or feeling peace filled, it's generally because the result of a soul injury. A soul injury. It's not as much a physical injury as a soul injury, a soul disturbance. Some level, at some level, the soul has been injured or hurt within. At some level, the heart or the mind or the heart and the mind or the heart as mind has been injured. So now These soul injuries that we experience at times that cause us to not feel as peaceful as we truly are, they can stem from unforgiving hurt. That's the baggage that we carry. Where we have felt hurt, our perspective of something that's happened to us or around us or through us leaves a feeling of hurtfulness, and we carry that baggage with us, hopefully not for long, but that we can carry that baggage as long as we determine in our mind that we're going to carry that baggage. As long as we play that tape in our head, in our mind, that's how long we carry that baggage. But we can also choose, my friends, and hopefully choose to release it and let it go. And sometimes these soul injuries can be a result of feelings that we have of guilt or shame. Maybe there's something that we did that we're not proud of. Maybe there's something that we've done or experienced that we're still feeling guilty about or shameful of. We can choose to release that and let it go and know that the old has passed away and the new has come. When we know better, we do better. Sometimes that soul injury can come as a feeling of not feeling good enough or not feeling a part of. Have you ever been in a group of people and you feel like you don't fit in this group? Not feeling good enough, not feeling that we know enough, not feeling that we are enough to be a part of this group. Sometimes a soul injury can come as a result of that feeling. And you see, it's not necessarily true that we don't fit into that group. It is not necessarily the truth. It is a feeling and a story that we tell ourselves. All of these are stories that we tell ourselves, and our life is a reflection of the stories that we've told ourselves over time. It's some level of emotional injury that has happened. That's followed by emotional injury, followed by the story that is mentally rehearsed about the injury. It is not necessarily factual, this story that we tell ourselves. It is a perception that we've had. I've shared with you the story of the time that I was driving down the highway and I saw the billboard. You remember that story? And there was this, all I saw was the word spirit. In my mind, that's what I saw, the word spirit. And I said, thank God. We've come to the point where we're talking about God out loud, spirit. Then I told myself that story for a good 15 minutes because that's how long it took me driving down the highway to realize that on that sign was also that big green bottle, that liter of bottle. It was a liter of soda. And it didn't say spirit, it said Sprite. But you see the story that I told myself for those 15 minutes? And then we jump off into other branches of the story. Oh, spirit. Oh, yes. We're advertising God. Oh my goodness. This is where we've come to. And the story grows, it multiplies, it multiplies, it multiplies. Now, it could be a story that's negative, and it multiplies and it multiplies and it multiplies and it grows. And we tell ourselves these stories, and eventually we believe that these stories are true. We believe that these stories are factual. And we live our life at a point of not experiencing peace because of some of these stories. When we can choose to be prospered, to look at the good in the story and be prospered, as the people in Barbados were, to be prospered by the events, the good events that happened in the story. So a feeling of lack can also come when a person considers themselves to be an empath. An empath. You see, a compassionate person who sees someone suffering wants to help and will help. An empathic person who sees someone suffering absorbs the suffering emotionally to the point where their own energy and emotional reserve is consumed. And now we have two people suffering. So a displacement in the feeling of peace, in being at peace and being centered in peace can come in any number of ways. You know, sometimes as parents, especially as parents, we know this feeling, we've experienced this feeling. When our children are experiencing difficulty as a parent, to some degree, we feel the pain and we too feel the suffering. And then as truth students, we remember peace is all I know. This too shall pass. The old has passed away and the new has come. And we begin to work ourselves out of the situation so that we can help to work and help our children or those around us out of the situation. You see, the soul injury, this soul injury, it's really a reaction. It's a reaction to a stimulus around us. Something has happened and our response is injury. Something has happened and this is the way we perceive it to be. Because you see, the truth of the matter is there is no hurt in God. There are no hurt feelings, no hurt thoughts in the mind of God. So this hurtfulness and this lack of peace is of our own reaction to a situation. It's not what someone did to me. It's what happened and how I responded. The good news, my friends, the good news is we can rewrite any story about any experience that we have had. We can rewrite any story or every story about any experience that we've had. We can choose to do that. We can choose to invest our energies and our thoughtfulness in looking at it and seeing the good and writing the story about the good. And it's not making believe that other things didn't happen, but it is choosing what we're going to focus on. 1 Corinthians 14 and 33 that we read earlier this morning tells us that God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. So when we're in these situations that seem out of order, out of peace, and maybe we've fallen to pieces at that given time, God is not in that situation. So we want to stop and get ourselves together and center. Getting ourselves together means centering ourselves in the Christ presence within, so that we can move forward in alignment with God, so that we can move forward in alignment with the thoughts of God, so that we can move forward centered in peace. And in this particular time of history, peace is what we can continually bring to situations. You know, before the crucifixion, Jesus knew that his disciples were afraid and not at peace. He knew that. He knew that they did not understand all that he had taught. Even though he had invested so much in teaching them, he realized that not all of them understood it. And so he said these words to them: peace I leave with you. This is before the crucifixion. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. He said, do not let your hearts be troubled. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Peace I leave with you. And so, my friends, I encourage you not to allow your hearts to be troubled, but know that the peace of God is within us. The peace of God is what we are. And so, to every daily experience that we come to, that we encounter with other people, that we encounter with ourselves as we sit and we think and we meditate and we contemplate, each of these encounters that we bring peace, the peace within to that experience. Because we make that experience what it is. We make it what it is, and we can choose to make it peaceful, or we can choose to make it fretful and be in pieces. And so we want to be peaceful and not in pieces. And I think that we've done a really good job of that in this last year and some months. And we want to continue on that path of peacefulness and knowing that we are the peacemakers and we bring that peace to our daily situation. So affirm to yourself, I know truth, and truth has set me free. Not that truth will set me free, that truth has set me free, already done. Affirm to yourself that the old has passed away and the new is here to stay. The old has passed away and the new is here. Affirm to yourself, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Be the peacemaker. Bring the peace to every situation because you are the peace. And when others around you are not remembering that, as we sometimes do, I think at some point we all are in that space where we just forget and we feel distant, so we feel separated from God, which is not a reality that cannot happen, but sometimes we forget. So our lack of peace, our lack of feeling peace filled is because of forgetfulness. But we can choose to rewrite the stories that we rehearse in our mind by rehearsing the positive affirmations. And that is what we want to do. So as we move forward in this week and each and every week and throughout time, remember, peace is who we are. Peace is what we are. And peace is what we are about. God bless you, and I bless you, and so it is.